Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing in the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your host, Master Captain Angie Scott.
Angelica, Talan, welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Angie. I miss you from only a week ago.
I know, it's crazy. We just met, and I wanted to talk about that before we get into talking about your history and fishing in the outdoors and being an influencer and all those fun things. But first of all, we just met at the Academy Sports and Outdoors Women's Retreat, and talk a little bit about what that experience was like for you.
That experience was just so beautiful. First of all, to get out of the colder weather, nor'easter was happening on the East Coast. And so to get out into like Florida weather and to just be amongst women who support other women while we, share our stories about fishing in general and connecting and bonding. It was so beautiful. I loved it.
It was. I agree. We were down in Jacksonville, Florida. And, Academy came out with a whole line with Magellan of women's pro gear. So we got to go to the store. Was that your first time at an Academy? Or had you been?
It was like a couple of years ago. I was in North Carolina. I was freezing one night. I walked into a store. I believe it was Academy, but the store that you and I went into, it blew me away how big it was. And I'm hooked on the Magellan line right now. Like, that's my favorite line.
Yeah, we got to actually try out some outfits and go out fishing for a couple days with some guides. So we actually wore the clothing out in the field to kind of see how it all worked, and got some background on what all went into the design process. And I'm actually going to have Michelle on the show at some point here to go over all that and introduce it to the audience. But I know you were really impressed with the quality and the price point.
Yes, the price point has, in fishing especially, has been a barrier to entry for a lot of people, especially I would say in BIPOC communities. And I fell in love with the quality of Magellan. But when I found out how inexpensive each product was, I went crazy. I'm like, what? I basically 3 sun hoodies for the price of another big box retailer's product. And I'm in love, and I'm dedicated to this brand for sure. And that trip that we were on together made a huge, huge fan out of me.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't think in that line, the pro line that we saw, I think the highest priced item was like $49.99. And that was a really nice hoodie with a neck gaiter built in. And I've seen this with another brand where it's almost twice as much, so.
Absolutely. And you and I met the designer, Michelle, who will be on your show, just to hear her process, when she was designing for women. That just, and I can't wait to hear what she has to say. I won't share what she shared with me because she's going to share it on your show. But I was just so impressed, not only from my own perspective, but for being a mom and buying for my teenage daughter. She really did not miss one step in her process.
Yeah, and it's cool. It's a rarity in the fishing industry in particular to have a clothing line designed by women for women. And she, we'll get into it, but she definitely did her research and talked to and got feedback from a lot of women anglers. And they're open to more feedback too, which is cool. They're looking already ahead to the next thing and what can we improve upon, what's missing, what do we need, and that's just great. We've come a long ways.
We have come a long ways, and I'll tell you all right now, my favorite part of the product is there's a place for you to wipe your sunglasses, and that was very helpful throughout our entire trip.
Yeah, some of them even have line cutters built right in. How often do you get in a situation where you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta, you gotta cut your line, and to have something like right there ready to go is awesome.
That was awesome for me too. Like I was freaking out. I was screaming inside. I'm like, what? So yeah, I actually own 3 pairs of those pants now and a pair of shorts.
Nice. Very cool. Well, I want to get into your story. You have a great story growing up, and you grew up in Ohio. Is that correct?
Yeah, great memory. Oh,
Yeah.
Northwest Ohio, outside of the Toledo area for anyone who is a Buckeye. So my parents lived kind of on the border of Michigan and Northwest Ohio. And when I was little, we would go fishing, like conventional spin. And I loved it. And I really kind of looked forward to those weekends with my cousins, my aunts and uncles, and we would make a big day out of it, like a lot of times during the summer. And back then we would cook for food, or we would like fish for food, I should say.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then fast forward to today, like I do more fly fishing and catching and releasing.
Right. What kind of fish were you fishing for back then, growing up?
Well, I remember fishing for perch. That's pretty
Mm.
much the only fish I can remember is perch. And on occasion, I feel like we just did some other panfish, but that's the only fish I really remember.
Okay, well that's definitely a delicacy. Perch are one of the best eating fish, so that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
That if you were going to fishing for food, perch is the one to go for sure. And they're in abundance too, so it's not like you have to worry about conservation with they're put in the fisheries to eat.
Yes.
So
That's good to know. And I remember on occasion my uncle would catch walleye, but I never caught one.
ooh, that's my favorite right there, walleye. I love the toothy fish. That's what I grew up fishing up in Minnesota. So, and that's another very good eating fish. Very white, not fishy tasting at all. So, very cool. So how did you then transition from, growing up doing that kind of fishing to now what you mentioned you're doing now, fly fishing, and you're in the Washington, D.C. area. So that's quite a transition from
Yeah.
where you grew up.
Yeah. So, about the age of 14, I stopped fishing so much with my family. I wanted to like go and do bike rides and go hiking with friends. And fast forward to, I have 2 kids, a daughter and a son. And my daughter was 9 years old, and we would take her to the Chesapeake Bay, which is only like an hour and a half from DC. And she would see all of these people fishing. And one day she was intrigued and she came and she asked me, she said, Mommy, I would love it if you could take me fishing. And I was like, wait a minute. She normally asks my husband to take her to do everything. Can you take me to play baseball? Can you do kickball, volleyball? But she didn't ask him. She asked her mom. And I was like, oh, wow. She must have remembered I told her stories about like when I was fishing when I was her age. And it made me so happy and proud. So we went out and we went into the Potomac River in downtown DC. Um, she was a rock star. She caught like 6 catfish. That's what's
Oh
here in
wow.
the waters, catfish.
Okay.
And I remember like trying to take the hook out and feeling like really weird about it. And then I didn't want to bring the catfish home. So I would throw it in. I left the bait from that day in the trunk of my car.
Oh no.
And the next morning, I went to take them to school, or I don't know where we were going. It's maybe a camp or something. And all of a sudden, the back of my car and the trunk smelled like death. It was like, what the heck is back there? I opened the trunk to see that, oh my gosh, I had left all of the live bait from the night before. And I was like, oh no. So I went down the rabbit hole on YouTube. I was like typing, so how do you fish without live bait? Because we can't do this again. I know you can fish without live bait. And then I discovered fly fishing immediately. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've heard of fly fishing before. Why didn't we do that? So yeah, so on my husband's side of the family, there's a few fly anglers. And then
Okay.
I have a couple of college friends that's their whole life. That's all they talk about is fly fishing. So I reached out to all of them and I asked them for tips and tricks. And then somehow that pointed me in the direction of Done Magazine. Hey,
Yeah.
and a lady angler, you need to reach out to Jen Ripple. And then I ended up writing a couple of articles for Done Magazine. I'll be writing a couple more coming soon. And through Done Magazine, I discovered United Women on the Fly, joined that community. I feel like Heather Hodson, the founder of United Women on the Fly, we were like on social media, we were like cheerleading for each other. And then eventually she called me up out of the blue and said, I have a weird proposal for you. And I thought, I love weird. So what is it? And she said, I would love to invite you to Washington State to come fishing with me and our team. It's basically the admin team. It's going to be our first official retreat, and we're going to be fishing on the Grand Ronde. And I thought, well, what's the Grand Ronde? And she said, well, this is like one of the best places in the world for steelhead. Well, my husband's from Cleveland, and I remember seeing steelhead in Cleveland. I was like, I'm in. So within 5 minutes, I had booked my flight to go and meet Heather Hodson from United Women on the Fly. Met her within 10 minutes. She invited me to be on the admin team. And now I'm the diversity, equity, and inclusion liaison for United Women on the Fly.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how long ago was that?
That was a little bit, I would say about 1.5 years. And and through them and through the team, my initiative is trying to introduce as many women to the sport of fly fishing. But my goal is to basically introduce people in the BIPOC community. That's what I would like to do. I'd like to get more minority women into the sport because I know we're out there, but sometimes you have to be the change that you need to see. And growing up, one of the reasons I gave up fishing is because I never saw myself represented. Every time I was on the river, it was just us. We were the only people of color in Northwest Ohio that I'd ever see. And I think, well, maybe I shouldn't be here. But now I'm like, no, the outdoors is for everyone. And I would love to let other, people see me as a representative and be there for them. Like, hey, I'm here. You're not the only one. Get out here. Come out here with me.
Yeah, what you're doing is so important because that's such a common thing, even for, just women in general in fishing, not seeing themselves represented. And that's the biggest reason why women who try it might not come back because they feel like you did. They're like, I don't see anybody else out here like me, so maybe I shouldn't be here. And they quit, and so that's why what you're doing, what I'm doing with this show, like trying to give people, be the change, like you said, show them, hey, you do belong here. You can do this.
Yeah.
And that's so great. So I want to go back just a little bit when you first discovered fly fishing as an option to do artificials. How did you go about learning the actual technique?
Oh, that is such a great question, Angie. Well, I'll just tell everyone that's listening to the show, I highly, highly recommend that you go out with an experienced angler or even hire a guide if you can. I thought I could just go down the YouTube educational path and teach myself, but no. It didn't work. So I did go out by myself. I tried to I bought all of the equipment that I needed, which is a whole other story because that story right there really cemented in my mind that one of the hugest barriers to entry is the cost of the equipment. But we can get to that later. But I tried to teach myself. It didn't work. I ended up getting invited to, I think it's called Cumberland Valley, Pennsylvania, through TCO Outfitters in Pennsylvania to go on my first hosted fly fishing weekend. And I was able to get a guide who really took us out and explained everything step by step, and then gave us our first official casting lesson as a family. And from that point on, I was hooked. But Yeah, it took a couple of trials and errors to realize that I probably needed an expert, someone in the field to show me the way.
Yeah, that definitely helps cut down the learning curve. I'm sure there's people out there that can pick it up from watching YouTube videos, but in my experience, having that hands-on, one-on-one, somebody there to teach you the right way, so you're not ingraining bad habits, that you have to fix later, which I know can happen. I don't have a lot of experience fly fishing personally. Jen Ripple has given me some casting lessons, and I have caught one fish on the fly. But one thing I got to experience for the first time was this past fall. I got to go to the Outdoor Media Summit in where was it? Estes Park, Colorado. And we did a day where we had like a scavenger hunt in the town, and we had to go to find these different stations. And there's a little real shallow stream that flows through there. And one of the stations was a fly casting contest where you had to try to get your fly on it looked like a little miniature cornhole board, and you got points if you got it in the hole or if you just hit the board. But it was a technique I'd never heard of before called I think it's called Takari. Is that what you call it?
Tara, yeah, I just discovered Sankara myself. That sounds fun.
Yeah, so I think, and that's a super simple way to do it because you don't have a reel. You're just casting. That's it. And so I think for somebody wanting to just learn, that might be a really good way to just start because you're just buying one rod. They make them to where they can fold up, so that they can be really portable. You can throw it in the trunk of your car, and then whenever you have a chance to hit a stream, just pull over, get out, and practice. And I think that would be a really affordable way for somebody wanting to get into fly fishing.
Yeah, I love that idea because it's a very minimalistic approach. Like you said, it doesn't come with a reel. So you just are really using your, I guess your hand to pull everything in. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I haven't done Tenkara yet, but it's on my list. I saw a demonstration at the Virginia Fly Fishing and Wine Festival a couple of weeks ago, and I was hooked. And I'm using that pun, but it really does. Kind of solidify how I feel, or it demonstrates with one word, hooked.
Right. Yeah. Talk about that festival. I know is that the first time you got to meet Jen Ripple in person?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So after writing or contributing to Done Magazine, Jen and I stayed in contact for, like regularly, and we became friends. And she had mentioned to me that, hey, there's a festival near you, you need to come. And so I was like, all right. So we made a road trip out of it. I took another lady from our team, Kelly Kirsch, went with me, and we met in person. And it's just like you and me, Angie. I felt like I'd known her for years, and we had known each other for years, but we're just seeing each other in physical form, I guess, if you will.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's such a great idea. Why not combine fly fishing and wine, right?
Yeah, it was fun. We had a great weekend. I got to meet a lot of the vendors there. I got to learn a little bit more about the equipment that you use because there's just still so much, to learn. I think fly
Mhm.
fishing is a sport that you will literally learn something every single time you go out.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Have you gotten into tying flies at all?
I have taken a workshop recently. I took one at a
Okay.
local Orvis down the street from where I live, and it was so fun. One of my friends sent my daughter some feathers that he had gone hunting, and I believe they're partridge feathers. And so we got to use some of those and learn. It's a process, but I feel like I'm going to be able to do it one day. But
Yeah.
it was a little overwhelming the other day to learn the steps, but it's something I'm looking forward to in the future.
Cool. And are both your kids into fishing now?
They love it. Yes.
Yeah.
Both of them
Awesome.
are in love with it. We went to a neighborhood or a town called Waynesboro, Virginia, probably about 6 or 7 months ago. And through my work as an influencer, Visit Waynesboro hired me and my family to come out. And one of the experiences that they had on our chart was fishing. And I said, well, how about fly fishing? And they were like, you're in luck. We know the best people to take you out. So we went down there. I want to say it was the Charles River, but I can't remember. And my son caught he caught more fish than myself, my daughter, and my husband combined.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to taking him back in a couple weeks.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, it's important to get the kids involved, especially if they take a liking to it, and teach them, when they're young. So it's hopefully something that they can carry on through the rest of their life and pass it on to the next generations.
That's
So
right, Angie. That's exactly how I feel. I feel like this is the best type of sport to pass on to future generations. And I'm happy that they're both interested in it. And they kind of make it a competition, which I'm like trying to say like, no, fishing is more for relaxing and zen and meditative purposes. But any way I can get them out on the water is going to be fine by me.
Yeah, absolutely. And for kids to learn early on about conservation and the importance of protecting our resources, like now more than ever, it's we've got to get kids to understand that, because otherwise we're going to lose what we've got. So what's like you're kind of in a more of a urban area. You said the first time you went was kind of like a downtown type setting.
Yeah.
Urban fishing always intrigues me. I don't think enough people think about it as a possibility. um, do a lot of people do it in your area?
Well, there's a small group that I found that do fly fishing. We kind of have to go into the suburbs, I would say, to do it,
Okay.
just because a conventional spin would work better on the Potomac River. But there is a location that I understand I probably should keep more private. Some of us do get together on the weekends and we'll go and we'll fish, we'll fly fish for shad. And so shad is like the species of fish that seems to be the most popular to be fished in between, I would say, I'm guessing between like March and like, I want to say like June or July. It seems to be like the hot season. Uh,
Uh-huh.
so last spring I was able to connect with a couple of anglers and we went out and I caught a few shad and it was very fun. But fishing here is very different than like going somewhere else, like the Chesapeake Bay or where we were in Florida or
Yeah.
anywhere out on the West Coast. Very different, but fun no less.
Yeah. Well, great. So you've got a couple articles coming up for Done. Anything else coming up for you that you want to mention?
Oh wow.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, and there's always so much to do. But I have a couple articles that will be released hopefully in April or May, and for Done Magazine. There's a feature for me coming out in Northern Virginia Magazine and my work to try to diversify the sport of fly fishing here in the state of Virginia. And as an influencer here in DC, I've just been invited to a bunch of different shows coming up. Like there's a pre-Oscars award show coming up, and I get to walk the red carpet for that. So that'll be fun.
Nice.
And for United Women on the Fly, we are working on a campaign to kind of illustrate and showcase women who can do both things. So like you are a podcaster and you're so much more. You can do everything. So I think it's going to be fun to see me in a glamorized role like I have to do in the world of influencing, like
Uh-huh.
to like get made up and get in a gown and interview celebrities. And then you'll see me out there fly fishing. And the goal is to showcase women who can do both.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we'll look forward to seeing that. And where can people follow you online?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for asking. You can follow me at Angelica Talan on Instagram, and you can go to my website at www.angelicainthecity.com.
Awesome. We'll put links to that in the show notes so people can just click and go follow you. and check out your website. And I just want to thank you so much. This has been a real pleasure to have you on. Hopefully, we'll get to hang out again in person sometime in the near future. So we'll definitely stay in touch and stay connected.
Yes.
And it's a great thing about social media. It makes it easier to do that. So it was a pleasure meeting you in Jacksonville. And thank you again for coming on the show. This has been really great.
It was a pleasure meeting you as well, Angie. I loved hanging out with you so much, and we are going to put some dates on the calendar. I definitely want to fish with you next time. So
yeah, we didn't get a chance to actually fish together. So next time we'll make that happen.
yes, and thank you so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Is an honor.